Hi, I'm Jade. This is Momma, I Made It. I went to culinary school out of high school. And it wasn't until I got like my big girl pastry job that it kind of all came to me. That wasn't my main passion, that I would rather be at home folding origami. The whole story about this is that I've always had to think about what my goals were and are, where I'd like to shoot for in 3 to 5 years, or just even through the end of the year, right? And I have to pivot my work based on that. I'm originally from Faribault, Minnesota, so southern Minnesota, and I was born and raised there. My family all kind of moved out to LA throughout the last, I would say, 20 to 15 years. I came a little bit later, about 4 years ago. It was important for me to explore and kind of move around and take opportunities as they came. I felt like, it wasn't a specific thought or feeling that I had, but I just knew I wasn't ready to kind of move out to LA, be with the family, and be, I guess, grounded again. I wanted to be free and see where the wind would take me. In my younger years, I definitely practiced origami. Again, I was in a small rural town, so there wasn't a ton of resources for origami in general. I learned in 4th grade from a teacher's assistant, and it was amazing for me to see and experience that we could create something and so many things out of paper, like a resource that we all have at home. So I actually frequented the public library, which I am so grateful for. And I checked out all of the origami books that I could, like, get my hands on, fold all the models, go to another library, check out their origami section, and, pretty much just repeated that process. It was more of a quiet hobby for myself. I guess, being Vietnamese or just Asian folks just kind of felt like it made sense for me to practice that. And I don't know, it just made me feel a certain way. And I just kind of quietly did it. Through my teenage years, I ended up baking a lot more as a hobby. Excuse me. And I went to culinary school out of high school. So I'm a traditionally trained pastry chef, and I practiced pastry for about 6 years, with origami sprinkled in, right? And it wasn't until I got like my big girl pastry job that it kind of all came to me that wasn't my main passion, that I would rather be at home folding origami. And I pretty much made a game plan of, okay, I acknowledge this is what I really feel, this is what I really want. I can't really ignore it anymore. So I just thought about the steps I needed to take to, I guess, pursue it, like in a more serious level. Realized origami was like the thing for me. I was running my own pastry program at a nice restaurant. I was doing multiple things at that venue, and I really had no reason to not want to be there, to not continue doing what I was doing. I've already, I think at that time, started dabbling in origami about a year and a half, just in a little bit more of a challenging level. And, it was one night working dinner service. Everything's normal, everything's going smoothly. And I just feel this kind of weight inside my chest, like on my spirit. And I'm just thinking, like, what is going on with me? And all I could think about was, it's because I just kind of been I guess, turning the cheek to that I'd rather be folding paper at home. I'd rather be creating art. And then, once I faced myself and the honest truth, I was like, okay, this is it. Cat's out of the box. So what do we need to do? Like, where can I actually take this? Where would I like to take it? And where do I start? That was really the thoughts after that. It wasn't I really shouldn't quit pastry. I have, all the things in place, like stable. No, that was like, get out of here. All of that, like stability, all of that, this makes sense. But what's funny is that regarding that question, I had already experienced something like that, actually before culinary school. I went to the University of Minnesota for interior design. And, my sister graduated with an architecture degree. My brother graduated from there with a business degree. They both have their masters. The checking all the boxes kind of older siblings to, well, it's like, how do I fill in these shoes? But, I was very lucky to have a supportive family. Maybe they didn't always agree with all of my decisions, and I don't, blame them for that. They, in the scope of things, they wanted the best for me, right? They wanted me to kind of see the kind of potential I had. But when I went to the University of Minnesota for design, I dropped out after a semester because it was like the same kind of feeling that I had when I was working pastry, and acknowledged like this is not like something I love. Like, this is not something I accept that I will continue pouring energy into. And so I guess that was like the first step when I was 18. Then 19 I went to culinary school, and I think I was 24 at the time I quit pastry and was like, all right, the time is now, now or never. And it's been interesting, but I was very fortunate to have, I guess, the role models in my life that always encouraged me to not be afraid, especially don't be afraid of change. You have to accept it because it will happen in life. And, rather than panicking, rather than dwelling on it, think about what the next steps are. Yeah, so after I pivoted from culinary to pursue, like, an attempt to pursue art full-time, which, I do art almost full-time, but I certainly still have a full-time job that, I can collect a paycheck to fund. Pretty much, I had to figure out how to make enough money that could supplement myself and my business endeavors, right? I decided to switch roles in restaurants, and instead of being back of the house, which is where the chefs are, I understood that, making tips, you make a fair amount of money. So I started as a host, as a busser, and worked my way up to getting a fantastic serving job. And without that serving job, I wouldn't have been able to kind of slingshot my way through a lot of items that supported me. And I did go back to culinary a little bit. I worked a stint in Alaska for fishing season at a fishing lodge, and I ran the pastry department there. The cool thing is that it was only 6 months as a seasonal position. So even if I loved it, even if I hated it, I was still coming back to Minneapolis. And I guess like the whole story about this is that I've always had to think about what my goals were and are, where I'd like to shoot for in 3 to 5 years, or just even through the end of the year, right? And I have to pivot my work based on that. So it's not something that people are keen on, like being able to, I guess, move, changing professions, changing positions for their work that is the bread and butter. But I understand that is like crucial for me being able to pursue anything that I desire. I feel like every year I feel that because I'm doing items with my work, with my origami. I'm having a lot of interesting opportunities that I don't think I ever thought I would have come across. And so like honestly, every year that I get to achieve new, I guess, activations, I get to exhibit in new spaces, new platforms. It feels like an aha moment. And I think, you know, when I first started this journey back in Minneapolis, I was showing at a local coffee shop. I was showing at like during art show or art fairs, like for a weekend at a brewery, you know, and a lot of, I guess what I'm trying to make a point of is it's community. You know, the community back home has supported me greatly. I still get orders from folks in Minnesota, and I don't think that's ever stopped. This year will be my 12th year at practicing origami professionally. And I think, you know, my main goal that my younger self wanted to do was to show origami at like a fine art, you know, event, you know, that it's like a piece of art on canvas on the wall. Well, now it's like I've done that so much, but is the magic like taken away? No, because the spaces that I'm showing, the platforms that I'm showing are constantly kind of elevating, and they're getting higher and higher. And I mean, what is my goal for it overall for origami? I just want to take it as far as I can. I want to really achieve the full potential of this medium. And at the same time, I'm able to like find my own full potential. So it's like a really beautiful way to parallel myself and my work together. Even at this point, I still encounter times where I feel like I have to kind of explain or support why my position is this, why I'm sticking to this path. And it's not something that I think will ever go away. And, you know, that's fine. That's the path I chose. But also no one's ever went down a path the way that I have right now with origami, right? So I'm very aware that the kind of, I guess, things, the tough points that I'll encounter will be there. They'll show up in different ways. As far as how I stuck to my path and why, well, you are the only person that knows how you feel. You are the only person that knows how creating this work makes you feel and fulfills you. Because this work fulfills me in ways that nothing else in my life can. You know, the love of my family is there, the love of my friends, the support, Friday nights that I have off and get to go out, you know, maybe just even like relationships, right? They all fulfill different parts of you. But this, like what origami does for me is like, I have no words. It's just something that will always be a part of me, like my shadow. And that's the honest truth. And when you know, you know. When I think about mistakes, I try to think of it as a learning point, a point where you reassess, you reflect, which I do a lot, and you figure out how to do it better next time, or how to not repeat that. But I guess explicitly a mistake, maybe just not giving myself the kind of credit that I should at some points in my career, in my artistic career. Maybe not pricing high enough, maybe thinking that Maybe just thinking, that I'm not worth as much, or my work isn't worth as much because someone is giving me a lower amount. I think that's probably also like really difficult for any like small business or creator, right? Is how do I price my work? What's too high? What's too low? Well, I don't know if there's ever like a correct answer for that, but as you go on with your process, like just trust yourself. And that is honestly the best thing you can do. I can't even imagine. I don't think she would recognize future Jade, to be quite honest. So quiet and so shy, very introverted. I mean, naturally I am, but developing social skills, right? And social etiquette with being a server, a waitress, bartender. I've really had to put myself in those uncomfortable positions to continue to grow. And that's like something very difficult that not everyone does. So yeah, I don't think fourth grade Jade would recognize her future self. She would be like, whoa, she got tattoos and a nose ring. She's not working a 9 to 5. What is going on? But I think she would not let that fire that fuels her creativity like ever go out. A skill that changed the game for me is reflecting honestly with yourself, right? I mean, it sounds very cliche. You don't have to like literally look at yourself in the mirror, but I mean, items such as journaling or being able to be conscious with your emotions and not like react, but be able to understand yourself. Understand, okay, well, I like this, but like, why do I like this? What is the importance to me? And then I feel like being able to reflect on a lot of points such as that, it like further enriches your work, right? Because a lot of people create from the heart. They create based on emotions. And I think being able to reflect and articulate how you really feel, but being honest with yourself about that can really just give you the well-rounded traits of being like a strong artist or creator. I guess the truth is I don't have like a normal every day. And that's something I'm just used to. Just my work schedule in the past has never been consistent. And I fit my work, like my artwork, around that, unless, there's like an exhibition or an event that I need to really block windows of time off. Then my actual like paycheck work is based around that. So my schedule is dependent on my current projects, what's up and coming, and my actual work schedule that I collect a paycheck from. Right now, it's actually pretty cool. I have a little consistency. I wake up, I work out, I go to work, I come home, I answer emails, I pump out a bunch of creative stuff if it's due. So my schedule for creative work is actually like I am booked for the rest of this year. Like I am committing to creating fine art pieces for exhibitions. As far as other items that I'll allow wiggle room for, I do volunteer, and I am an avid community partner with Little Tokyo. And like this week, we have Little Tokyo Prom on Saturday. So I've been, in talks with the organization putting it on for the last 5 months, 6 months even. And my contribution is I made a quantity of origami corsages and boutonnieres for the folks that purchase tickets, you know, and I genuinely feel so happy that I have some kind of community here, being kind of like an outsider, right? So I don't like to take any kind of funds, especially since I've built such an inventory throughout my art career. So it's like, oh yeah, we'll use some of this, we'll get some of that. But to contribute my work, to see people enjoy it, has been lovely. So honestly, there's like no room for a romantic life or a social life. And that is something that I committed to during the beginning of this year. At times I'll make like small windows of time to meet some friends because you need to recharge in some way. But yeah, it's some kind of artwork, whether it's via email, whether it's like updating my resume, whether I'm like picking paper for a project that I'm gonna do, or oh my gosh, I have to order all these things before I forget again. You know, it's like an array of colors of the kinds of things that I do. And as like far as my workspace, you know, I just naturally took over half of the living room, most of the garage. And yeah, at times like my work will trickle into the dining room table. We all kind of eat dinner around it. And that's just how it is, because they just know I make stuff and I'm like an octopus. I'm doing like 10 different things at the same time. So 10 different trains of thoughts, right? But I love it. I wouldn't want to give this up. I think plan a realistic goal of what they want to achieve, whether it's a year from now, maybe like actually multiple goals, 6 months, a year, 3 years, and be realistic. What steps do they need to take to achieve the 6-month mark, the 1 year mark, the 3 year mark? Who's in their network that could help? Who are people that they look up to that they could email and ask questions to? Like, speak up, don't be afraid, because that's what I do. And, you know, like the worst thing someone could do is not answer back or just say, hey, I can't do this, but keep going. Oh, it can be glamorized on social media. What the definition or what we've seen of actually making it really is, because again, like I achieved a lot of my goals that I set when I was younger, but every year I'm making new goals and more goals, and I keep achieving them. So, well, maybe I'm just a crazy person and I don't ever want to stop. I don't ever want to stay. All right, here's the flag. You know, I conquered everything. I'm done. Because I don't really believe in that. I feel like if you seek more growth, you will always be able to find challenges to overcome and attain it. And like, don't get comfortable, because that really diminishes your ability to even like have openness to understand, to learn. Those are key. So yeah, don't believe whatever making it is online or comparing yourself to others. You need to be able to honestly reflect and say, wow, like I made it. I'm proud of me. Because that comes first. Everything else is fluff.